Hello, Charlie TCG here, and welcome back to Looking Ahead, the series where I break down and analyze the meta, what's happening over Japan, and how will it impact our one. And today I'm covering a topic which I love to talk about, and you guys love as well. It's creativity being rewarded in the Shrouded Fable format. Now, this format's been out for a few weeks now in Japan, and already some really interesting decks have kind of sprout out. Palafin, United Wings, or even Kaparaja, some really interesting, unique, creative decks are doing really well in the Gym Challenges. So we're going to break down exactly how this will really impact the world's format in just a few months' time. Plus, also look at a tier list about what decks have been performing the best in the Gym Challenges, plus some brand new cards, which we're going to start right now, which will be out, I believe, in our September set. So we got some interesting EX cards to be revealed. Hydrapple EX, which has a really cool ability, which lets you attach one basic and grass energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon. If you do, heal 30 damage. So this is a really good. You've got energy acceleration plus some healing as well. This pretty much gets rid of any of the likes of Dracloak being a very powerful archetype and has an amazing secondary attack. Granted, it is a safe shoot, always remember that. 30 damage plus 30 more for each grass energy attached to all of your Pokemon that are in play. Now, we already have Teal Mask, Ogerpon, and Gardenia's Vigor as well. So if we have quite a few of these Hydrapples out, Ogerpons and Gardenia's Vigor, effectively, you could potentially attach to 9, even 10 energies, depending on how many abilities you really have in play, which is incredibly powerful. Just pretty much loading up as much energies as possible. And pretty much the Slurp Storm turn 2, maybe even turn 3, could deal with huge one-hit KO potential because Charizard is now ramping up to be one of the best decks again in Japan, so Hydrapple EX could actually see its place in the metagame. Now we have a new stellar Pokemon to be revealed as well, Lapras EX, which is pretty powerful as well. 220 HP is still pretty good, and powerful splash 40 times to have energy attached to this Pokemon is not too bad, but it has to really load up a ton of energy to deal these huge, massive one-hit KOs. Well, how do we do that? Well, its first attack, let me Rain, which lets you look at the top 20 cards of your deck and attach any number of energies you find there to your Pokemon any way you like. Now, this is an insane energy acceleration. Granted, it's very steep cost to kind of get to it with a water, psychic, and a lightning energy. So quite difficult to get into, but effectively just attaching a ton of energies and putting these huge big one-hit KOs with a first attack could see some play, but I don't think this is as strong as Terrapagos. Now, Blair is a very interesting card, which can only be played if your opponent has exactly 2 prize cards remaining. And until the end of this turn, if your opponent's action Pokemon is knocked out by damage from one of your Terra Pokemon, take 1 more prize. Now, this is pretty much Pokemon really spoon-feeding that they really want us to play Terra Pokemon again. They haven't had that much love, but we saw Charizard kind of have a huge success, and they kind of wanted their Terrapagos to be one of the strongest decks as well. And this could be a really good inclusion. This could effectively go from pretty much taking half your prize cards effectively if you've gone down to 3 already, which is still very powerful. Glass Trumpet also really helps your Terra Pokemon as well, but you can only play it if you have a Terra Pokemon in play, and if you do, choose up to 2 of your bench colorless Pokemon and attach a basic energy from your discard pile to them. This is an incredibly powerful energy acceleration. Granted, it is focusing just on Terra Pokemon, a colorless Pokemon, but let's think about it. You could even run this in the likes of Darkcrafts, you know, a really interesting picture. Chuck a Blessing in there, and your Terra Pokemon could be what? Could be Ogerpon, could even be a Trapacos as well. And just doing some easy energy acceleration that way, and also in Darkrai can be huge big one-hit KO potential as early as potentially turn 2. You could put this in just regular Terrapagos and have a ton of energy acceleration on your Terrapagos and not rely on the likes of Crispin or the Terra Ace-Specs Hall card. So there are so many good combinations what Terra cards are really kind of gaining. Now, obviously, people are saying this could be obviously impacted into Charizard decks, but I think it could definitely be focusing more on Terrapagos as well, the Glass Trumpet. But Blair could be very powerful, even the likes of Dragapult as well. Effectively, if you knock out them cards, you could get a 4 prize turn if everything kind of goes your way. Now we've got some other blue cards as well. The Salazzle, which is really good for like sort of hand blocking sort of capability, especially if you think about like some Xerosic, which is also released in Shrouded Fable. Your opponent discards 1 card from the hand, but if his Pokemon is evolved this turn, your opponent discards 2 more cards. So that's very scary. Discarding 3 cards as well. Xerosic discards until we have 2. You have hand clippers as well. You could also have Iono, plus also for likes of Unfair Stamp as well. So many really powerful discarding effects of cards. So Salazzle could be very scary and only takes for a DTE as well. Effectively, you've got to constantly be evolving over time, but you could get some instant like healing and some picking up some cards as well. I could see Salazzle actually having some very scary hand control capability. Arcalachon, for 180 HP, has a really interesting ability, which each of your Pokemon has a Metal Energy attached will have no retreat cost. So free retreat is still pretty good, but it is on a stage 2. Stage 1, sorry. Another Stage 2 has a very interesting ability, Caracosta, which pretty much all your own Pokemon's attack do 30 more damage to your opponent's active evolved Pokemon. Now, we saw Kindred EX with a very powerful first attack, which has you put some water Pokemon from your discard pile into play, and this could be a very good one as well to have, dealing additional more damage, especially if you play likes of Kindred, which has 50 times more energy attached to it. This could do additional 30 more, so that you don't have additional energy to get the KOs on the likes of Gardevoir, Charizard, or Dragapult, or even some Pokemon to get to 180 damage. I could see this Caracosta see some play in that sort of Kindred box deck, and very excited to see how it could work. And obviously, it's the fossil type. You do have this Ancient Cologne fossil, which pretty much prevents all effects or attacks done to your opponent's Pokemon done to this Pokemon. Very interesting, and obviously it doesn't give up a prize card, which is very, very nice. So these are some new cards which will be coming in our September set, but how exactly is the Shrouded Fable metagame really affecting right now in the Gym Challenge? Well, we can see here that Charizard is now back on top, with kind of being the biggest percentage and actually the most wins. Now, why is Charizard being so good? Because it works a lot well with the Mochi and Petulant, pretty much making sure you can instantly poison your Pokemon, your active Pokemon, do additional more 40 damage if it has the poison Mochi in. It also has the instant switching out. Pretty much is really, really powerful against any control aspect, unless Petulant is the one in the active spot. So I think that's exactly why Charizard are doing so well. Other decks which are doing really well is like Regidrago. Because they have access now to Haxorus and likes of Kyurem. Pretty much making sure that with Haxorus, you don't need to be an evolved Pokemon. You can instantly pretty much one-hit KO any of your opponent's Pokemon if it has special energy attached to this one. Bye-bye Lugia and any Pokemon that might potentially run Legacy Energy or Mist Energy, or even likes of Kyurem as well. Not reliant on that very costly energy requirement. As long as you have a Lost Box, you have an instant win against that one, because they always have to play Chorus to at least have a way in, and you can instantly get these big 3-prize KOs. Another really interesting one that is doing well is the likes of Ancient Box, which I believe pretty much like Secret Box done really well, and United Wings, she's seen a little bit of showing. It's very, very powerful because if you think about it, now we have the Dartrix, so some people are running at least 1 or 2 Rowlets, so you can get these big one-hit KOs on Charizard and not rely on having every single one of them in the discard pile. So it's a very interesting way how the meta is kind of shaping up, and it's always going to be evolving. I'm constantly going to be talking about it as well in the weeks and even months leading up to the World Championships. But now let's look at the creative, the decks which are doing very well, which are the under-the-radar ones, and some of them are really interesting. Let's start by looking at Copper Rajas, which I honestly think is pretty powerful. It has an ability which makes sure that no one can play a stadium card in play. So pretty much want to lock in the stadium card, and the stadium we want to lock into are ones that pretty much mean that they can't be damaged, or those Pokemon that have a rule box can't attack, or Pokemon that do have a rule box can't attack. One of the sort of things like that. So you have a really good energy protection from all your Pokemon in play, and doing 130 damage and potentially an additional 100 more damage, but you can't attack next turn. It's still very, very powerful. You can really energy accelerate it with likes of the Heavy Baton to move around the energy, as well as also the Matang as well to kind of like boost up the damage and kind of like get out the attack as quick as possible. This is a very unique sort of archetype, and I really am a big fan of this one. Kind of having that protection, plus also stopping your opponent from any stadium cards, as well as also kind of dealing some good damage turn after turn. 130 damage is a good 3-shot against most things anyway, plus also 230 in the last, pretty much earliest turn 2. You get these big one-hit KOs like the Iron, the Iron Hand, as well as also the likes of Miraidon and Shimpao, which is still very, very good numbers. I like the TM Evoke, especially if you're playing a very heavy Arvin build, you can kind of get these big energy acceleration for your Matangs. But also the Luxurious Escape, pretty much having 300 HP is very difficult for nearly anything to get a knockout and only get 2 prizes from. I think this is a very interesting, unique sort of archetype, which I'm really excited to see actually do pretty well over in Japan. Another one is Palafin, and Palafin is a very interesting one as well. Lots of people really wanted Palafin to work, myself included, because it's all there. 340 HP on a stage 1 and do 250 damage with 1 energy, but you can only really do this one if it's switched out from the ability. And I think it's really strong, and Petulant really makes it that much better. What Petulant does is it has that switching out. So yes, you are poisoned, but you do get to get that switching out and constantly be utilizing the Palafin's ability. We thought it was also really good for its ability, and it also had Bibble as well for that draw factor as well. I really like this one. I think Kieran to do additional more damage, and also the Night Mesagoza to kind of like look at the top card, put a card from the top of your hand to top of your deck. Can't be safe from like some Iono or anything like that. And I'm a big fan of this deck. Yes, there is a lot going on to this one, but we've seen the creativity be rewarded and kind of do okay as well in Japan. Another one is this really interesting control deck, which, yes, we currently have most of these cards anyway, but we don't have the likes of Zerosic, which is very, very scary against the opponent. You have the likes of Noivern to make sure it's not damaged by any of your basic Pokemon. Then you have Luxray to get some discarding factor from your opponent's hand. You have Devo. You have the likes of handheld fan to move around the energy. It's a really interesting locking style deck. This definitely focuses on upper Neo energy, so you can kind of like get these big one-hit KOs constantly, because this upper Neo energy will definitely be utilized on the likes of your Luxrays or Noivern, so that's kind of the only reason why it could be played. So, I believe it's only for stage 2. I always forget with Upper New Energy, I believe it is only a stage 2. So it's definitely an interesting style lock deck overall. I'm really excited to see how control can be edited in the format. This could be a really unique way, because it's a lot going on for this one. You might think about it, there is basically stage 3 evolving Pokemon, which can be a bit difficult, but we've seen this work before. We look at the likes of the Charizard, Dragapult, Pidgeot deck. So I do think this lock deck could see some work and relevance in the future. Now, I still love this Iron Ursaluna. I think this deck is a ton of fun. Having 150 HP can pretty much compare straight into play with a lot of energies on this one and deal additional 30 more damage for each damage counter on your opponent's Pokemon. You have the likes of Hawlucha and Iron Valiant. You can effectively put additional 7 more damage counters on the opponent and deal, well, a ton of one-hit KO potential. I love having the Jet Energy to kind of like boost it into the access part and have a lot of switching outs from the likes of the Iron Valiants. There is a ton going for this deck, and it generally seems a lot of fun. I like the Night Stretcher for that recovery factor, the Lana to kind of pick up the Ursaluna, plus the 2 basic energies as well to kind of instantly put it down again. This is a very interesting deck, and really excited to see how this really creativity does work. You also have the other big Ursaluna for these big one-hit kills in the late game, and then the Serendipity to kind of like get that draw factor if any of your Pokemon is knocked out, because you are very, very low HP. You only have 150, so kind of like it's always going to be KO the next turn. So having kind of that extra inbuilt draw factor is really, really strong. Now, Charizard, I wanted to talk about this one because it's a little bit different to how we've seen some other decks, and it really focuses on the likes of the Dusknoir line. Now, this is a very, very powerful ability. First, make sure you can instantly KO your Dusclops, so your opponent takes a prize card and sprinkle 5 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. So this already fuels up Charizard's attack. It also will send you to additional 30 more damage. Effectively, if you sprinkle for damage as well, that's an additional 80 more damage on the active Pokemon, which is really, really strong. Chuck in the likes of Maxim Bell, all of a sudden you're doing additional 50 more on top of that if your opponent's active Pokemon is an EX card. That is a huge capability. One thing I love about this one is that it's only playing a 2/1/1 line of Dusknoir. You might go, well, why don't you just play more Dusknoirs as well, or stuff like that? Well, you only really going to get 1 Dusclops out and then 1 Dusknoir out. And this is very, very powerful because the Dusknoir can be easily put out from the likes of the Red Candy. It's easily search out from the likes of Arven or quick search from your Pidgeot. So I really like this one. You can effectively use the Dusclops in the early game and then potentially a Dusknoir in the late one. Just always be careful that if you are doing this, you are giving your opponent potentially 2 prize cards, so you don't really want to let them get them to win the game through that way. So definitely something a bit more careful about. But there is so much creativity, and Dusknoir and Dusclops is really seeping their way into a lot of decks as well, like Charizard, to kind of cheat out that way. So your opponent is taking the prize card, but also fueling your very, very powerful attack. So I love this creative choice about where Charizard is leading its way into. Lost Box as well is kind of like going into VM Dusclops line. And I like this as well because this can work with Sableye. You're sprinkling even more damage and potentially can take 2 or 3 prize cards that way, which is very, very scary. Monkey Dory as well to move around some damage counters. There's also Secret Box to kind of get all your tool card supporters and stadium cards, which I really, really like. It's a kind of like a guaranteed, I want Chorus right now, let's play Secret Box. Effectively, I could see the likes of the Prime Catcher be a lot better in the deck. But I really, really like having the Secret Box in this one to kind of like get the Chorus, get the TM Devo, get anything like that. You're spreading so much damage counters around with Sableye, the likes of Dusclops, as well as Monkey Dory. This works a lot better, and that's why TM Devo could be so powerful. Really, really interesting, more like a spread controlling and Lost Box deck. And I love this creative choice about where potentially Lost Box could be going towards. Now, United Wings is obviously a very, very fun deck, and it's definitely going to pick up a lot more from the release of Dartrix. Effectively going to do 320 damage. Every single one of them is in discard pile, and you attack with the likes of Ditto. There are some really interesting text in this one as well. Serendipity, so it goes on with the bird sort of theme, so you have that draw factor because pretty much every single turn your opponent's going to get a KO. And also Kirim. Now this is going to be a terrible starter, but can really help you in a Lost Box matchup. I would definitely think Lost Box will be playing Manaphy, so be prepared because I 100% think they need to have that protection of Lost Box. But having some Kirim has that as your protection against this one, pretty much making your opponent go, you have to have Manaphy or don't play Chorus because I can get these big one-hit KOs for one energy attachment. I also love the Kami as well because you want to be really aggressive, get as many Pokemon in the discard pile as quick as possible. And also having a secret box as well, kind of like, again, really good for that discard factor and getting your boss's orders or your energies or anything like that. It's just very powerful. I'm a big fan about where United Wings is kind of going in this new sort of format. And I think Dartrix really does add to this one. If Charizard is going to be with the best second format right now in this new deck, chucking one or two Rowlets to evolve up to this one makes a lot of sense. Shimpal as well has kind of gained a few new cards as well, and I've really liked the creative flair they've gone with this one. Serendipity is kind of like the draw factor maybe Shimpal really needs. What you can do is kind of have an additional more draw factor. You already have Greninja, you already have Bibarel, but Serendipity could get pretty much let you draw 3 cards as soon as one of your Pokemon is knocked out in your last turn. What I like about this one, they also play Night Scratcher for that and Pokemon recovery factor, so you can instantly get some Pokemon. So let's also have return of the likes of Cancer Clone and Iono into the deck. But effectively could be the best way to play Shimpao. We saw Daichi play a very similar deck of this in like his little tournament, which I probably will talk about next week. So definitely something to be a little bit more considerate about. That Serendipity could make a new home in the likes of Shimpao. And Kirin VMAX has seen a little bit of play as well. And I love this one. Secret Box makes so much sense. The Nighttime Mesogosa makes a lot of sense. Could put a water energy on the top and then use Kirin VMAX's ability and flood so much energies in the deck. You also have the Power Hourglass as well, so energy accelerate from the discard pile to your Kirin as well. I was a big fan of Kirin Palkia. Pretty much, yeah, when it was released a few years ago, and I could see this become another very powerful deck again from like Reach of a Stadium card, because obviously we saw Oranguru do really well, and the likes of this can pretty much make sure Kirin get these big one-hit kills. Yes, it's a VMAX, and VMAX is kind of a fallen from favor right now, but it is a very interesting deck to play around with, and kind of gained a few new tools to play, and potentially can make Kirin a very fun rogue deck again. So that's all really I'm talking about for the creative decks. Kind of like looking ahead, can we see some of this seep into our deck choices? Now we've seen the likes of the Pincurchin and the Poison Mochi kind of seep into the likes of Charizard, but could we see the likes of Kindra EX and the Neutral Center really see a bit of play in the World's format? Will we see continuation of Zard really rising up to the huge ranks? Could we see United Wings really tech in a few Growlers or even more of these grass type decks like a straight up Ogerpon deck before we get to the big Hydrapple in the September time? Could we actually see Zard kind of be unchecked because Dragapult was definitely a bit of a fluke? I definitely am being held my hand up saying I definitely bought into the Dragapult propaganda, but the format might not just be right for Dragapult, and I believe in September time it 100% will. And will these decks really impact our format? First thing I'm going to say, it is far too early to tell about what the format for World is going to be. This is going to be a lot of practice testing. There's like 2 months of testing for World, so I've got my first testing session for Worlds and helping them this weekend. So there is a lot of things that can really impact how this format is going to change in the months leading up to the World Championships. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below what deck are you interested about? What could see the creative flair? Do you think that the choices I've made and kind of seen are really creative, or do you think we're not going to see that flair kind of build up and people are going to focus more consistency over that sort of creativity? So, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll be back in a few days for another one. See you guys then.